Welcome to the Candice Malcolm Show. My name is Kris Sims. I'm the Alberta Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, filling in for Candice today. We've got a great show for you. Hey, do you like being able to express yourself on the internet? Do you like being able to hold government to account by speaking out against them, possibly even protesting against them, maybe even embarrassing them a little bit? We here at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we do that every day. We hand out golden pig statues to politicians and bureaucrats who waste your time while dressed in a pig suit, okay? We protest in front of MPs' offices in chicken suits, calling them chickens, okay? So yeah, we can get in your face and you might get your feelings hurt a little bit. What's happening with some of these laws that are being proposed right there in the House of Commons? There's so much going on. We're going to be speaking with John Carpay about that in a couple of minutes. But first, I wanted to update you folks on what's going on the ground here in Alberta. I know we have a lot of viewers and subscribers in the province of Alberta. Thank you very much. But this also affects everybody else across the rest of Canada because government union strikes spread, okay? They all talk amongst themselves and they all take ideas from each other and they spread. Alberta, as of today, is in the middle of a huge teachers' strike. This is the first teachers' strike in the province of Alberta in 23 years. Put another way, there are kids who are locked out of school today, Monday, with their teachers out on the picket line, not able to go to school, whose parents never had to go through this, never had to endure this. So we've got hundreds of thousands of families whose lives have been disrupted. There's around 700,000 students in Alberta who are out of school right now. There's approximately 50,000 teachers who are now on strike, okay? So look at it this way. So depending on how old the kids are, we've got kids in grade 12 who are now missing out on important elements of their graduation year. These are kids who already went through being locked down out of school a few years ago, remember? And we've got little kids, so kids in kindergarten or grade 1 or something, who are suddenly now in a brand new babysitting situation or childcare situation that they may have never experienced before. Why? Because their routines have been totally disrupted by this teacher's strike. Now, this is what's going on. As far as we understand, they're not talking. The two sides, as far as we've been told, the Alberta government and the Alberta teachers unions are not speaking. The latest deal that was offered from the Alberta government and Premier Danielle Smith that was rejected by the teachers would have reportedly made Alberta teachers the highest paid teachers in Western Canada. Yeah. So this is a dead deal. They aren't going through with it. Okay. They said no to this. And this is something that we brought to you on the show last week. So just reading right off the grid, again, they said no to this. Starting in September of 2027, okay, so not long from now, say you've got 5 years of experience and you've got 5 years of teacher's education. So you took one extra year just to bump it up. You're already making you're making about $100,000 a year. Like, it's all there that was in that offer that they said no to. So this is where people are scratching their heads and they're like, okay, if you were offered 12% increase over 4 years, so 3% pay hike per year, plus they were offering, reportedly, to hire 3,000 new teachers, plus 1,500 new classroom assistants, and you'd be the highest paid teachers in all of Western Canada? And they said no to that. So what's going on? We don't actually know, but there's something going on, okay? A few things I'm hearing. I'm hearing through various grapevines because I have 2 kids who are out of school, okay, and I talk to lots of people all the time. I'm hearing a few things. I keep hearing the term, it's about classroom complexity. Folks, if you're a teacher and you're watching this and you're on the picket line, number 1, buy some snow boots, okay, because you got out there for a long time. 2, if you're a teacher and you're listening to this, nobody knows what you're talking about when you use euphemisms and buzzwords like it's about classroom complexity. If there's something going on that is really important in your classroom that is making you not be able to do your job, you have to be crystal clear with the government about that and offer solutions that the government can offer back to you, okay? Because I'll put it this way, there can't be more money. There can't be. Alberta is in a massive debt. We are on track to have a provincial debt of more than $84 billion this year. The interest payments alone that all of us taxpayers are coughing up this year on Alberta's provincial debt is more than $3 billion. Gone. Poof. To give you an idea of how much money that is, build 3 brand new hospitals, shiny, chrome, glass doors, all that stuff, burn it down. Burn it down. That's how much our interest payments are costing us on Alberta's debt. So Alberta Premier Danielle Smith can't be giving you more money than this. We already thought of the Taxpayers Federation that offer was pretty darn generous. If they'd consulted us about it, we'd be like, why are you spending this much money on this government union? What are you doing? Figure out a way for teachers to be able to do their jobs that won't break the bank of taxpayers. Lastly, we are encouraging Alberta Premier Danielle Smith to be strong on this, okay? Because she came out and she announced how much money the teachers just turned down. And she announced how much extra teachers they were going to hire and educational assistants they were going to hire. And they still voted, apparently, 89.5% rejection. That is a huge no vote to what looked like a very generous offer. So there's something going on here. It could be something internal that most normal people don't understand that's going on in the classrooms, or this could be a whole lot of politics. And if this is a whole lot of politics, the folks in the teachers union who are pushing this, okay, it's not all rank and file teachers. We know most rank and file teachers just want to go to work and do their job. But if there are folks who are agitating politics within the Alberta teachers, don't use kids as pawns. And Premier Smith did the right thing. When she came out immediately, it was within 12 hours of the Alberta teachers rejecting what, again, reportedly sounded like a really generous offer, okay? She came out very quickly and said, okay, so the money that we're saving right now as of today by not paying teachers their salary, because they're not paid their salary when they're out on strike, okay? That money that we're saving, we're handing it back to parents, which is the right thing to do. She took a page out of the British Columbia playbook. I think it was back in 2014 they did this. So this is an important public service announcement. If you know people who have kids in Alberta, apparently a lot of them don't know this. Tell parents this. If your kid is under the age of 12 and he or she is locked out of school due to the teacher's strike, you can get $30 per child per day for the duration of the strike. So that's like $150 a week per kid. This is to help you with childcare, babysitting, day camps, maybe some tutors that can come over and help your kid here and there. I know that a lot of people's lives have been upheaved. Like they're scrambling. There's so many single parents out there. There's so many 2-person working families who are outside the home that were counting on school being in session. And I'm sorry. Okay. But Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is doing the right thing by saying, you know what? We're saving money here, so we're giving it back to parents. And before somebody says, oh, well, why would the government hand out money to parents, blah, blah, blah. That's the parents' money. So the parents are taxpayers. They've paid their taxes for those schools to be open and for teachers to be at work. If the schools are closed and the teachers are refusing to work, you better believe those parents deserve a refund on that money. So folks, if you have kids who are under the age of 12 and they're in the Alberta system and they're locked out of school, go to the Alberta government website and make sure you can get at least some compensation for your kid being out of school. Also, a note, there's also apparently a curriculum help button there. So if you're somehow trying to teach your kid from home, all of a sudden, there's apparently a week-by-week guide that you can click on there and download that will try to keep them up to speed for the duration of this strike. Okay, that is the update on the ground here in Alberta. And the reason why I'm highlighting this is twofold. One, we got a lot of viewers in Alberta. And two, these government union strikes have a way of spreading. And this is a big one. First one in 23 years. And their friends in neighboring provinces are probably getting some pretty squirrely ideas. So go check that out. We're going to shift gears now to the importance of the ability for you to express yourself and hold government to account. But first, let's check in with our sponsor.
I want to give a quick word from our sponsor, Albertans Against No Fault Insurance. So did you know that the Alberta government is overhauling its auto insurance system under a new model called Care First, coming into effect in 2027? Most Albertans injured in car accidents will no longer be able to sue the at-fault driver. Instead, decisions about your care and compensation will be made by the insurance company, not your doctor, not the courts. Critics say this system puts insurance companies first and removes key rights from victims and their families.
Okay. There are 3 bills that are in front of the House of Commons right now. There's another one coming too, apparently, but let's just focus on the 3, okay? Which could affect your privacy and your ability to express yourself online. Let's listen to a short clip here. This is a member of parliament, new member of parliament, Matt Strauss, with the Conservatives in opposition, highlighting some of his concerns about this new law.
I am concerned, as I say, by the following sections. 15.1 and 15.2 give the minister the unprecedented, incredible power to kick any private Canadian citizen off the internet, to cut off their phone line, to turn off their cell phone.
That sounds pretty alarming, but what is actually happening? Does this mean that if you upset the minister, or if you say something the government doesn't like, for example, you shouldn't ban people from buying normal gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles, and anti-car zealots shouldn't be making up laws as to how much we need to spend on our vehicles, or where we can park, or what kind of fuel we can put into them, et cetera, et cetera? Would that run afoul of the government? What happens to our freedom of expression? Because if we can't express ourselves freely, how are we supposed to hold the government to account? How would this affect regular people? Let's find out. Joining me now is John Carpay. He is the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom and a friend of the show. John, thank you so much for taking time to join us today.
Glad to be with you and your viewers and listeners.
There is a whole kettle of fish that is at the House of Commons right now. The Carney government has dumped it back over, left over from the previous Trudeau government. Different incarnations of this stuff, but suffice to say, there are a lot of proposed law changes right now in the House of Commons that would deeply affect our ability for freedom of expression and privacy. And unless people forget, I have to remind them, if you cannot freely express yourself, you cannot hold government to account. So this is a really big deal, John, and that's why we've got you on. Where did you want to start with this? Do you want to start with the cyber issues that are being changed, or the fact that now it looks like our mail can be opened without a warrant? Where do you want to go first?
Well, let's do them in numerical order, C2,
Okay.
C8, C9. The terrifying thing about this, Kris, is that the average citizen, like I'm full-time working in public policy, and I have other responsibilities as well, and I am spending hours and hours and hours. These bills are 100 pages long. They amend various acts. They create new pieces of legislation. So there's no way the average citizen, unless you're working full time, maybe as a university prof or working for public policy organization like the Taxpayers Federation, it's just next to impossible. But that's really scary, because in terms of government accountability, if they're bringing forward like Bill C2, I'll rattle off just a few points. Okay, it's 140 pages long, 140 pages to read through the entire bill. It authorizes Canada Post to open letter mail without a warrant. It criminalizes the use of cash in amounts of 10,000 or higher. It creates this new piece of legislation called the Authorized Access to Information Act, whereby the government can demand information from an electronic services provider. When you look up the definition of electronic services provider, it is anybody sending out an email. So every church, every business, every nonprofit, every advocacy group, even if you were sending out emails to a bunch of buddies for monthly guys poker night, you're an electronic services provider. So Bill C2 is a massive privacy violation that authorizes the government also to demand from corporations that they turn over their subscriber lists and IP addresses. It's a massive privacy violation. Now, it also has tucked in there some provisions to strengthen our borders and changing the refugee policies, changing immigration policies, some of which may or may not be legitimate, but it should be split up. I mean, this is just wrong, right? To have your Strong Borders Act, they call it, right, where only a fraction of the bill is about the borders. And that should be debated separately. And then we should have a separate bill on whether to create this brand new Authorized Access to Information Act. So that's Bill C2.
This, if I may, this reminds me of last time when they brought forward the so-called Online Harms Act. And of course, part of that law was what any decent person would want to do was to strengthen penalties for people who victimize children on the internet. Like every sane person would vote in favor of that. But stuck in there was a whole bunch of crazy censorship laws. And I can't help it, man. I'm not new to this game. I have a feeling that they're purposefully like train carring these issues together so that they can drive a political wedge in the House of Commons. And then it makes it look like, well, why would you vote against strong borders? Don't you want strong borders? It's like, no, I just value people's privacy. Is that what's going on here, John?
Yes, definitely. And I was really pleased to learn that apparently the Conservative Party has said that in regards to Bill C2, they're going to vote against it if it's not separated, because there are parts of the Strong Borders Act that apply to borders that would be supported by the Conservatives. But the Conservatives said, no, we're not. We're voting against the bill. There are so many other bad things in there that don't need to be there, that could be debated separately just by splitting it up, right?
Okay.
So C8 is the cybersecurity. And I always say governments never take away your rights and freedoms. They never violate your privacy without providing a nice sounding pretext. And so the language in there over and over again is we have to protect cybersecurity from terrorists, from hackers, from people that would seek to destroy our, oil and gas pipelines, roads, bridges, banking. We got to protect you against terrorism, so on and so forth, all of which is laudable. I agree 100%. We need to protect our infrastructure and so on. The solution is law enforcement. Figure out who these people are. I'm assuming that they would always be operating under an assumed name. So what does the bill do? C8, ostensibly to protect us from cyber threats, and it's cybersecurity. It gives a blanket power to the federal cabinet to kick any Canadian off the internet if the minister deems that Canadian to be a threat to security. And threat can include manipulation, degradation. There's nothing in the bill that expressly says that your freedom of the content of what you say is protected. So if this passes in current form, if the government thinks that the Taxpayers Federation or the Justice Center is spreading misinformation, well, then we are a threat to cybersecurity. So they could kick Kris Sims or John Carpay or Scott Hennig, kick individuals off the internet to protect us from to protect the cybersecurity. So it's a huge power grab where, again, the minister can demand information without a warrant. The minister can order companies to do anything or refrain from doing anything if the minister decides that it's a threat to cybersecurity. And the court process, some of the orders can be secret. So, Kris, if you were kicked off the internet, then the order might specify that you're not allowed to tell anybody that you're kicked off the internet. And penalties of up to $1 million a day for individuals, for each day, and penalties up to $15 million for corporations. So a very, very aggressive, heavy-handed approach to silencing people. And if you do manage to go to court, remember, unless you've got $100,000 sitting in the bank for, my spare cash for litigation, Practically speaking, Canadians, they don't have 100,000 in the bank to go to court, and the court action would take 2 or 3 years. So if the minister kicks you off the internet, theoretically, you can go to court and get a court ruling to reverse that, theoretically, but only if you've got $100,000 and you're willing to be off the internet for the 2 or 3 years that it's going to take for the court action to proceed.
I just need you to specify something here, which I think if you go past it real fast, you miss it. Are you saying that this isn't so? I wouldn't have to be convicted in a criminal court of law and then sentenced, like with cyber terrorism or something awful, right? In order for this to be part of my sentencing punishment. Are you saying that the minister or the cabinet would have the power to kick an individual off of the internet or deny their access to the internet without a conviction?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's it. Because currently, the state of the law currently, if you were, let's say you're, a terrorist or trafficking in child pornography or, threatening children online, if you were convicted of a crime, then part of your conditions could be, if you're in prison, you're not going to have access to the internet anyways, as far as I know. But if you were out on bail, the judge might say, we're kicking you off the internet. You're not allowed to go on it at all. That would be an extreme sanction, but that could be done currently. But if you're out on bail or if you've been convicted of a crime, right now the minister, if he has reasonable grounds as determined by the minister himself in his own head, okay, and that's just way too. We always do and say what we ourselves think is reasonable. So that's a pretty broad standard. But if the minister on reasonable grounds, as determined by the minister in his own head, thinks that you are a threat to Canada's cybersecurity, then he can kick you off the internet and order every, whoever's providing it that you no longer have access to the internet.
I wanted to highlight something here for people who are thinking, okay, guys, like your slope is pretty steep and too slippery and you're kind of imagining things here. This is only about, cyber terrorism or something. Well, remember before when former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in charge, and I'll give you an example from the Taxpayers Federation. We were pushing really, really hard against things like the carbon tax. And at one point, we found in one of the government's own reports that they had commissioned, it was on the Environment Canada website. In that report, they were suggesting that the Trudeau government implement a pickup truck tax. Straight up. That was a recommendation to the minister. Now, that was right there in the study that they posted on their own website, in the government website. So it's like, hey, let's have a special tax just for SUVs and pickup trucks because the environment, et cetera, et cetera. It was right there in black and white. We reported on it. We put it all over the internet. And the minister was so upset that he was calling it either misinformation or disinformation, like directly on the internet. Whoa. Like, this is your point. I think your point exactly, John, is that our interpretation of what is harmful or threatening can vary based on our own judgment. Is that what we're getting at here, where we could then be muzzled for saying, for example, the carbon tax is wrong? They could turn around and say, well, you're harming our environmental, goals. Isn't that part of this?
Yeah. Well, what I see more and more frequently these days is that a simple criticism of a politician or a government official, a bureaucrat, non-elected, whether elected or unelected, get a criticism of a person or a policy, and then you hear this accusation that this is bullying, harassment, intimidation. It's like, no, it's nothing of the sorts. It's just that there's Cabinet Minister Smith and some citizens are saying that the bill that he's introducing is a very bad bill, or whatever school trustee, votes in favor of such and such a policy. And the next thing you know, and then she gets criticism or he gets criticism. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm the victim of bullying and harassment and intimidation. What? Because somebody criticized your policy? Yeah. And so the point is, with loaded words, right, the minister could very easily say that something that somebody's saying is disinformation, and disinformation threatens all of us.
Yeah, I can see where this is heading. The puck is going in the bad direction. Speaking for the Taxpayers Federation, I mean, we do stunts all the time. Like, we hand out golden pig statues in a pig costume for politicians and bureaucrats who waste your money. Politicians who are refusing to stand up for taxpayers and vote to lower their taxes, or on critical other votes and bills. Like, we have chicken suits that we dance in front of the office with a protest sign. Like, if their feelings get too hurt over that kind of stuff, A, you shouldn't be in politics, but B, they could try to extend something like this down the road, couldn't they? To try to say, you know what, you're no longer allowed to speak.
Well, that ties right in with Bill C9. If we can get back to C8, I'm happy to do so. But this is so on point. So Bill C9 takes the current hate speech provisions, which already allow a Canadian judge to impose a more severe sentence if somebody is convicted, let's say, of robbing a grocery store. And so they came in there with a knife or a gun or a baseball bat, and they threatened the clerk and said, "Give me all your money, otherwise I'll kill you." If there is hate involved, and let's say that the grocery store clerk is Somali or Korean or East Indian or whatever, and so the perpetrator there is, what the judge can do on sentencing, if the person's convicted of the crime, the judge can increase the penalty if the judge finds that hate for like racial hatred or hatred based on gender or sexual orientation, if hatred was a motivating factor, the penalty can be stiffer. Now, we can agree or disagree on that. Some people would say the crime is the crime and it doesn't matter what was in your heart. But the point is, this law is already on the books right now. Canadian judges have, under Criminal Code Section 718, they have the power to impose a stiffer sentence within the range of whatever, whether it's a maximum 2 years crime, maximum 5 years crime, maximum 10 years crime. What Bill C9 does is it puts this on steroids by increasing the maximum penalty. So if, let's say that robbing a convenience store carries a maximum penalty of 5 years, okay? If there was hatred, the maximum penalty becomes 10 years. So it's actually the entire sentence gets increased if the judge finds that there's hate. So a 2-year sentence can become a 5-year sentence. 5 can become 10. A 14-year sentence can become a life sentence. That's the first change. The other change is that hate speech prosecutions, we've had these laws on the books for 30 years, but the reason you don't see a lot of hate speech prosecutions, well, one reason is that maybe the chilling effect, but the other reason is the Attorney General of the province has to give a thumbs up, has to give a green lights to proceeding with a prosecution. Every other crime, it's the local police, local Crown prosecutors, they decide in that city, if you commit a crime in Lethbridge, it'll be the Lethbridge police, Crown prosecutors decide whether to prosecute or not. For the hate speech, if they want to prosecute, they have to run it by the Attorney General of the province for a review. And in some cases, the Attorney General of the province, thinking about it maybe more dispassionately. Anyway, they're scrapping that. So the local police and Crown prosecutors can decide on whether you've engaged in hate speech. Hate is an emotion. You cannot define it. And it's almost ridiculous what they do in Bill C9. They actually say that dislike and disdain is not hate speech, but detestation and vilification is hate speech. So to be very clear there, you can dislike somebody, but just don't vilify them. They also say that it is not hate speech to humiliate, discredit, offend, or hurt the feelings of people. That's not hate speech.
So my chicken suit's okay for now.
Your chicken suit is not hate speech. You can discredit, humiliate, hurt the feelings of, and offend people. It's not hate speech. But don't cross into this detestation, vilification, because then it's hate speech. So it's just it's going to have a big chilling effect. But now the local police and local crowns can just decide on their own whether to proceed with the prosecution. And what these people sometimes do is they will prosecute and say, well, you'll get a fair day, you'll get a fair hearing in court, and if our case wasn't strong, then you'll be acquitted, so nothing to worry about. It's like, yeah, but the accused person, you've got to spend tens of thousands of dollars on lawyers to defend yourself, and you've got this public criminal charges hanging over you for a year, So anyway, so that's C9 is kind of a further attack on free speech is what it boils down to.
I know you don't have a crystal ball and you can't see inside their heads, but why remove that kind of emergency brake or sober second thought or signals check, whatever term you want to use? Why remove the Attorney General step here? What would be the government's reason for doing that? Like, usually I'm for, Taxpayers Federation, we want streamlined government. We want less, less delays. But in this case, where you're dealing with things like potential in freedom of expression implications, why would they remove that speed bump?
Because you're going to see a whole lot more prosecutions for hate speech than what we've ever seen before. Because sometimes it's even the existence of the review makes you think twice. Okay, does this really qualify as hate? Are we really going to get a conviction? Is it really in the public interest? Just knowing that the Attorney General of the province is going to review it already gets you to slow things down, which is why, off the top of my head, I'm only aware of one hate speech prosecution in the last decade, or maybe it was 15 years ago. There was some Aboriginal leader in Saskatchewan made a anti-Semitic comment, but this happens once per decade. That's going to start happening once a year, once a month, once a week, with without that review process in place.
So would you say then the three bills that people need to really be aware of at this moment, because it could change tomorrow in the House of Commons when it comes to things like privacy, freedom of expression, right, would be C9, C8, and C2? They have to watch all of these?
All three of them. They're hundreds of pages each. However, the good news is that doesn't stop you from contacting your MP and saying, even if it's just an email, a phone call, I want you to vote against Bill C2, C8, C9, 289, which are serious threats to privacy and freedom of expression. Sign, yours truly, your constituent. You can even write in your street address if you want, or your postal code, to make it clear to your MP that this is an email they're getting from their own constituents. So nothing stops you from contacting your MP and say, vote against Bill C289. And then we've got the Online Harms Act from the previous Parliament, which hasn't even been brought back, but the word on the street is that it will very likely be brought back, so it'll get a different number. It won't be C63 anymore, but that's also horrific. It can have people placed under house arrest wearing an ankle bracelet based on a neighbor fearing that you might commit a speech crime in future. Like it actually has, like you can get punished, not punished with jail time, but punished with house arrest and an ankle bracelet and a strict order about who you can and cannot talk with, without having been charged with a crime, had a trial, convicted, nothing. You can get conditions placed on you already. So supposedly that's coming back, but for right now at this moment, it's bills 289, C2, C8, C9 are the huge problems.
Wow. Okay. Before I let you go quickly, I know that we're going to have some sentencing hearings in Ottawa. It's tomorrow, correct?
Yes, Tuesday, October 7th. Tamara Leach, Chris Barber, they are on their way to Ottawa. I mean, they're probably arriving on Monday the 6th at some point, and the Crown is demanding 8 years jail time for Chris Barber, convicted of mischief, and 7 years jail time for Tamara Leach, convicted of mischief. And we get a ruling on Tuesday the 7th.
There was a very important federal court judgment that said the invocation of the Emergencies Act was wrong. I'm using layman's terms, of course, and that shouldn't have been done. And that, of course, was during that protest. The government of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau invoked the Emergencies Act. Bank accounts were frozen. To suffice to say, the federal court judge at that level said, you know what, that was unconstitutional, shouldn't have done that. So we saw that was a big win for the CCF. Do you think that is going to factor into this? Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, the Justice Center was involved in that case as well. We provided lawyers for Canadians that put forward affidavits, but and the CCF, Civil Liberties Association as well.
Yes, it was I would say a lot of people in what I would describe as the freedom movement who want freedom of expression and ability to hold government to account, and you can't do that if you're worried about your bank account being frozen. We're happy to see that ruling. Do you think that that will factor into the judge's sentencing at all when they're thinking about this and weighing the consequences? Because I was a longtime court reporter, and just speaking as a former court reporter, 8 and 7 years, in my experience, was a pretty hefty sentence for those convictions.
Oh yeah, there's people convicted of manslaughter that are getting less than 7 years, 8 years, and this is mischief is a pretty minor crime. I don't think that the fact that we got this court ruling that declared that the federal government under Trudeau violated the Emergencies Act and wrongfully declared state of emergency when there was no national emergency, it's not directly relevant on sentencing. What is relevant, though, and I think the lawyers for Kris and Tamara have brought this up, is that both individuals were continually in touch with police and with their own lawyers, striving around the clock to be law-abiding. The Justice Center had lawyers on the ground during all 3 weeks, and the lawyers, as well as Tamara and Kris themselves, they were always talking with police, being very open and transparent what we're doing. Kris parked, and other truckers, they parked their truck where the police told them. So hopefully the judge will take that into serious account, that these Tamara and Kris were striving 24 hours a day to comply with the law. There was an initial court ruling pertaining to an injunction against horn honking, where a judge said in his ruling that this is a lawful protest. And so we got to hope for the best, but it's pretty scary because there's a double standard that is at play here. When you see, for example, the Aboriginals protesting against residential schools at the Manitoba legislature, and then vandalizing, tearing down a statue of Queen Victoria, which is committing a crime in broad daylight. The police were watching, nothing was done. Crown prosecutors announced that nobody would be prosecuted. That's a double standard. I support peaceful protests 100%, but when you start vandalizing a statue, you're committing a crime. And yet, because these people were the right people protesting for the right cause, being sarcastic, there's no criminal charges. So that's a double standard that is terrifying, because it really undermines the rule of law and our democracy when how you're handled by prosecutors depends on what cause you're advocating for.
We definitely live in interesting times. John Carpay, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Once again, that is John Carpay. He is the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. You can go check out their work on their website. They're typically known as the JCCF. Folks, it has been wonderful sitting in for Candice Malcolm. I've been guest hosting for Candice off and on for the last few weeks. Thank you so much for making us a big part of your day. I wanted to let you know that I get to host my own show, which is really exciting. I'm super happy about it. And it's going to be right here on Juno News, backed up by the good folks at True North. And it launches tomorrow. So be sure to check back here on the same Bat channel to watch it then. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, make sure to like this video and share it with people who need to know.